Supervisor Ellsworth.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I'd like to initially respond to a few of the comments that have been used to justify the need to maintain ranked choice voting, articulated by Supervisor Campos and Supervisor Marr. First, the notion about voter turnout. Hopefully we can all agree, we can all cite two examples that show runoffs produce more turnout or ranked choice voting does. I mean, let's at least be honest about the numbers. In support of what Supervisor Farrell and I are doing, if you took the total votes that Supervisor Avalos and Mayor Ed Lee got in November, total votes cast for those two candidates barely surpassed the total votes that Gavin Newsom got as a single candidate in a December runoff. So there are stats on both sides, and we can all use stats to push our argument. Let's not raise the flag that I've got the stat that seals the deal on the argument. The stats cut both ways when it comes to voter turnout. One point that I would raise in terms of voter turnout, as we've been talking about, Supervisor Marr, you've raised it, Supervisor Campos, you did as well, about voter turnout in the minority communities. I think it gets to become a bit of a theoretical question when you compare the turnout numbers that you're citing from other cities to the actual experience we've had in San Francisco with ranked choice voting in minority communities. And you see that we had minority turnout, but their votes were tossed out. And I think you might ask yourself the question, what's worse? When you have a voter who doesn't show up, or a voter who actually shows up, goes to the trouble of educating themselves, voting, and then because ranked choice voting is difficult for some people to understand, they've gone to that effort and their vote's not counted. It's tossed out. You've got somebody who's made the effort, but the system as it is disenfranchises them. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And more representative in terms of this body, be very careful with that, because those proponents of ranked choice voting who have used that are using the 2000 Board of Supervisors election as their base to show that this body is more representative of the 2000 Board of Supervisors. And that's absolutely true. But that's because 2000 was the year district elections got put in place. And in District 1, you had Jake McGoldrick beat Michael Yockey. In District 3, you had Aaron Peskin beat Lawrence Wong. She was the incumbent, but she lost. So what I'm getting at is you had two straight white men beat minorities. District 6, you had white man Chris Daly. He beat or took the place of Leslie Katz. District 7, you had Tony Hall beat Mabel Tang. So when you use 2000 as your standard to show you've had improvement, okay, congratulations. But why don't you look at the Board of Supervisors that was elected in the 90s with runoffs? That had a majority women here at the Board of Supervisors. We're celebrating today because we have 3 women. So again, statistics cut both ways. And I think what it really gets to in the argument why I'm so supportive of this, Supervisor Wiener has articulated. And, more power to you, Supervisor Avalos. But I think this city would be so much better off today if we had had a 1-month discussion between John Avalos and Ed Lee. I think the work we do here, week to week, would be more informed. I think members of the public would be more informed. I think we'd be all a better educated electorate. And it would make our jobs, I think, more challenging, and we would produce a better product. Supervisor Avalos, I say this not as a knock, I say this as a positive of runoffs. We didn't see a lot of you during the campaign on the west side of the city. And I understand why. You had a power base where you did. If we'd had a runoff, you would have been out there. And the voters on the west side, you would have had an opportunity to espouse your views, get some more support out there. That would have made my job more difficult. I think you'd want that. And I'd like to see Mayor Lee in different parts of the city. And we hear Mayor Lee here in question time, and we've heard him all around talking about the Housing Trust Fund and the demise of redevelopment. I observed a lot of mayoral debates. I observed the campaign. I don't remember him talking about housing trust fund one time. I would have loved to have had that discussion in that 1 month, and I bet we would have, because we would have gotten closer to the demise of redevelopment. Ranked choice voting denies the electorate of that kind of discussion. You know, I hear the point that, oh, with runoffs you have negative campaigning. I mean, come on. Are we really trying to tell ourselves we didn't have negative campaigning with ranked choice voting? That with runoffs we have big money? Really? Did we really not have a lot of big money spent in this last campaign? I mean, I've got a novel about the mayor sitting in my office. There was plenty of big money spent in an election with ranked choice voting. Let's be honest about this. Ranked choice voting does not serve our citizens. Runoffs have their problems. But by and large, when it comes to the essence of democracy and an educated electorate, and the final point that Supervisor Farrell has hit so hard, the majority of the electorate, 9 of 11 of us, are here, even though a majority of the votes, 8 of the 10 of us, Supervisor Arlagi has not yet stood for election, 8 of the 10 of us are here because a majority of the electorate in our districts didn't vote for us. That's not right. That just is not right. The mayor of San Francisco is the mayor of San Francisco with less than a majority of the electorate voting for him. That is not right. Ranked choice voting is a flawed system. Runoffs are not perfect, but they are an improvement over what we currently have.
Supervisor Weiner.
Thank you. My objection to RCV is that we've created a system where only the most hyper-engaged voters who spend a lot of time focusing on these things are ever really going to know, when you have 8 or 10 or 12 candidates, what the distinctions are among those candidates. Those of us on the inside, the people who really spend a lot of time and have the time to spend, can parse that out. But for the voters who have a million other things going on in life where this is not their top priority in doing the research, it is very challenging to really know with that many candidates who stands for what. The newspapers, unfortunately, do not have the capacity anymore to really cover that and to really parse that out in the way that you can when you have 2 candidates. When you look back to the last 2 pre-RCV competitive mayoral races in 1999 and 2003, those runoffs set the city on fire. Whether you were for Tom Amiano or Willie Brown or Matt Gonzalez or Gavin Newsom, it was narrowed down to 2 people with very divergent visions for the future of the city. And San Franciscans learned where those candidates stood, and they knew what they wanted for their vision and who to support. And they were exciting elections, and they galvanized the grassroots of the city on both sides for years and years to come. How many people came out of each of those mayoral races completely energized and into politics? I don't think we will ever see that again if we have this past mayor's race as some sort of example of what we're going to see in the future, with 10 or 15 candidates, maybe 7 or 8 of them arguably viable, everyone moving towards the middle with a few exceptions of candidates who do make a point in making sure people know how they stand, and people not really necessarily knowing what the distinctions are. And so for me, there are a lot of different ways we can hold elections, and I'm not saying that this one proposal is the only way to do it. But in terms of what we have now, this is superior, and that's why I'll be voting for it.
Supervisor Ellsworth.
Thank you. I have more comments to share on the items, but specifically to the motion. Let's be fair about what this motion is. The proponents of ranked choice voting have been walking the halls, have been talking publicly. They don't want this on the June ballot because they don't like the political calculus. They don't like the voter turnout that'll be in June. They prefer it be on November because they see more turnout. And they have said in public debates with me, we want a more progressive turnout in November. But if we're going to send something back to committee, let's be honest about why we're doing it. That's what the proponents of ranked choice voting have been very clear about. Yet, just as a reminder, a historical context here, ranked choice voting, when it was established by the electorate, was not in a November election. They brought it to a primary election. It was before June. It was when we had March elections, March 2002. So it was good enough for the proponents then, but now they don't want it, not feeling comfortable with their odds. Maybe that's not, Supervisor Campos has not articulated that as a reason, so I'll take him for his word and on the surface that we need more statistics, we need more analysis. Colleagues, this issue has been in front of us not just for the last 6 months, it's been in front of us for the last 10 years. I'm not quite sure what more we need to discuss. I appreciate LAFCO is going to look at some data. All due respect, what more data do we really need? USF has done a great study that is out. Department of Elections has put out the numbers. We can all interpret data for the next 3 months, for the next 3 years. The data we need to make a decision is in front of us. I really, truly believe, might not be Supervisor Campos's intent, but let's be honest what this is. This is simply a delay tactic. Let's vote it up or down today. It doesn't need to go to committee. If you're not comfortable voting for it, don't vote for it. But let's not string it out. Let's have our vote today.